I think this is going to be a very good session in the sense that all of the three, pillars of digital ecosystem are present over here. One is represented by the Pakistan Digital Authority. Sir is here. He's leading the national digital transformation agenda at Pakistan Digital Authority. So we will have some, good insights from him as well. And obviously, you did listen to Imran sharing his bits about digital currency and or not just digital currency, by the way, some elements of tokenization and also fractional assets, which probably are going to be the future of money in the country and going forward. All these are actually going to create an ecosystem which essentially is going to be having some, some safeguards in the form of cybersecurity considerations, which probably is going to be very well spelled by Ali Numan. To initiate the proceedings, I think it's going to be a good idea to start asking Sir about what Pakistan Digital Authority is. So essentially, what we usually understand here is that Pakistan Digital Authority has got a number of roles. For example, it is a data regulator. Also, it is a citizen experience office. And not last but not the least, obviously, it is the National Digital Transformation Authority. So, keeping in view the significance of all these roles, and how do you actually translate all these roles into specific actions to create the right kind of impact within the economy? And the second part of my questions here is about the fact that since obviously a lot of it is actually very new to us because we never had that institution before. So people would probably like to understand for common men, for common people, and for common businesses, how is the success going to look like in the near to medium term and in the long run?
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. So let me start with first laying the answering the foundational question, which is Pakistan Digital Authority. Why does it even exist? So let's go back to 2025. In 2025 January, there was an act passed in Parliament called the Digital Nation Pakistan Act, and that brought into existence read two, three different very important things. Number one, it established the National Digital Commission, which is headed by the Prime Minister himself, and we have the four chief ministers there as well. So this is the apex body to look at the complete transformation of Pakistan to a leading digital nation. Also, many of the regulators and also major ministries are present there as well. The second thing was bringing Pakistan Digital Authority as an authority into existence. And third was that there should be a national digital master plan that brings together all the connects all the different pieces that are happening right now today in terms of transformation in a unified way. And also where there are gaps, they are able to plug those gaps. So this becomes our blueprint for transformation of the nation as a whole. That particular National Digital Master Plan is um, assumed to be based on three core pillars. One is how do we transform Pakistan into becoming a leading digital economy? Number two is a leading digital society. And number three is a leading digital governance model. And the fourth underlying foundational pillar is the infrastructural elements that will bring about all of this change. So if you want to become a leading digital nation, society, economy, or governance, you need to have the rails in place. So DPI is one part of it, digital public infrastructure, which includes the digital identity, digital payments, and also data exchange layer, plus some of the core connectivity elements. So you cannot obviously have a digital world if you don't have connectivity. You cannot have a digital world if you don't have storage and compute power. And you don't have a digital world if you don't have the access devices, whether it is machine to machine or person to machine needs for accessing different products and services. So holistically, this looks at how we can transform Pakistan into becoming a leading digital nation in the world. When we talk about the economy, we are looking at potentially becoming the 20 largest digital economy in the world. And when we look at society and governance, then looking at obviously becoming a very efficient and effective governance model and society. Some of the things we talked about earlier on, I've been hearing about Obviously, money is one central theme. And frankly, the way we are approaching all of this is not to take the conventional approach of what exists today, let's just take forward. We are trying to look at reimagining how our world could look like and how our world could operate based on the actual core reason of existence of something. So we today are talking about money. I haven't yet heard anyone talk about the real existence. Why does money exist in the first place? And why does banking exist in the first place? And those are the kind of questions we are trying to answer, that what could be the breakthrough models that will transform and change the way we operate as a nation, as a country, and we can become move on first principles perspective versus being a nation that is always looking at what's happening outside the world and trying to apply that in the country. Definitely looking at how we can pivot out of the low cost syndrome that we've been stuck in for almost 70 plus years. How do we move away from labor arbitrage into IP creation? So these are some of the thinkings that are happening. To answer your second question, which is what could we assume or have the world look like in the future? One of the North Stars that we are trying to go after as a mission is whether it is government to citizen or citizen to government or citizen to other um, private sector organizations or business to private sector organization, business to business or business to government, is this phenomena of one click, zero forms to fill, zero documents to give, and you basically have got what you wanted to get done.
You, that's a very good imagination or reimagination of how the world is going to look like. I mean, I'm fairly impressed with when are we going to see this and how we're going to see this. So the time will tell. Hopefully, we're going to see that in the foreseeable future, Sir, with the kind of effort that you and your team have been putting in. And obviously, you were mentioning about the fact that you've got that national data exchange layer and the other bits which are complementary to the rails that we already have. For example, we do have the NADRA system. We also have RAST. By the way, we were looking at the fact that India and Brazil operate instant payment systems, and they probably are one of the most leading country, two of the most leading countries, which are utilizing that information very constructively for digital financing, or like you talked about the first one-click financing, which is that they're using that for. Obviously, we do have a lot of payment data aggregated within the RAS platform. And also, by the way, there are other platforms besides RAS which could actually be aggregated to create that kind of data repository for digital financing or one-click financing. So thank you very much, Sir, for,
Just maybe
yeah.
to add to that, you are familiar with the fact that we have launched the reference architecture and now working on the technical architecture for the National Digital Exchange layer, which is called VUSL. And that we are hoping to get up and running, operated by NADRA, which will change the way we transition into digital flows of any kind. And it's going to be a world first because we are trying to make it as AI native as possible, so that we are trying to create a new standard. So X-Road is typically the standard used, which is from Estonia for the exchange layer. We are trying to build something which will, inshallah, be one step ahead. And the second thing, just to mention, the approach we are taking is very much of a human-centered design approach. So we are putting users at the center. In this case, it's the citizens of Pakistan. And the citizens of Pakistan either are wanting to be involved in their own personal life and have things to do, or they may be part of a business. So in those two areas, we are very much looking to design the future of Pakistan with the citizens of Pakistan, so that it's something that is meaningful, and especially the youth. We are spending a lot of time with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, trying to understand what their expectations are of government of the future, so that what we build is not for here and now. It is going to be much more breakthrough. And frankly, when we sit with these really bright kids, it opens our mind itself into what is possible and amazing. And I would welcome anyone from the banking sector or the financial sector wanting to craft the story for how the ease of doing business can become easier, because we do want to change that. We've already mapped out what does the end-to-end business life cycle look like, from thinking about setting up a business, setting up the business, operating the business, growing the business, and exiting the business. Now we are trying to understand what the pain points are and then try to build something which will be, hopefully, inshallah, a world first solution as a platform.
Thank you very much, Imran. So now my next question, sorry, my apologies here. Thank you very much. So Imran, my next question would be to you. I think you have actually very well elaborated in your presentation about how is the journey going to be looking like for Pakistan. And in fact, you have identified some of the interesting data points. We ourselves were not believing it that Pakistan is probably Pakistan has got one of the highest adoption rates in terms of the virtual currencies in the world. That data point has always been a debatable data point, by the way. But yes, obviously, we do have a lot of users using digital currency as potential investment, opportunity, and that too Gen Z, which is that you but you also mentioned the fact that a number of structural initiatives are being taken by the government and the other organizations to be able to integrate this virtual currency adoption with the mainstream financial systems. I would probably like to ask you, because there are varying levels of risks that are attached to very different types of virtual currencies. You talked about a number of virtual currencies, by the way. Some of those are actually probably maybe used by the citizens in general. For example, the stable coins and the cryptos. So considering the level of risks attached to those currencies and the level of preparedness of the country, because you do seem to know about the country a lot, how do you think we should phase out our adoption journey to make it more sustainable and more responsible? So that's the first question, Imran. And there's another question which I just thought maybe I should, take the opportunity of your presence over here, is the fractional assets. And you talked about tokenization. So in relation to that, the tokenized deposits. So in the context of Pakistan, how do you see these opportunities and challenges? And what could be done in the private and public sector to be able to better yield this potential, because this is a very high potential, high yield, opportunity.
Great. No, thank you. Both great questions. So, on this notion of, Pakistan being the third largest adopter of digital currencies, let's be real, right? I mean, a lot of that is dollar-denominated stable coins in the informal sector. That adoption happened without us, right? The challenge for us now is to bring all of those people and more into a regulatory fold where they have protection, they have risk tolerance, and they have a way to contribute constructively towards the growth of the Pakistani economy, right? So that's the opportunity. Now, the way I would approach it is, as you said, what is the right phased approach? The right phased approach would be to measure by where if there was a catastrophic failure, where that could be the most contained, right? So I would start with tokenized deposits, right? I talked about tokenized deposits as being a huge opportunity for banks. The other advantage of going first with tokenized deposits, it's a wholesale phenomenon, which means that you're limiting it to the most, mature and sophisticated institutional investors, right? And so they will make sure that they have the right cybersecurity in place, the infrastructure in place, and if there is any catastrophic failure, it is limited to institutions that can handle it, right? Rather than the larger public, where you could create panic, right? So that's where I'd start with first. The next phase would be on a specific use case that has immediate implications for the country, right? So remittances would be a great phase. Again, the opportunity with remittances is a very specific use case. It can still be contained because you're just sending money from point A to point B, and you can test out the scalability of the infrastructure in a much larger place than you can with just wholesale tokenized deposits. And then if that works, inshallah, then you can actually expand it out to the broader digital rupee and digital currency. So that's how I would do it, right? From a phase perspective. Now, the enabling things that have to happen for that to work well, first and foremost, is coming back to my slides, rules, and the first and foremost is you need rules, you need the rails, and then you need what we call the right people in place, right? So first of all, from a rules perspective, the thing that has to happen is we've got Pavara, we've got SPP. We want to make sure that we don't classify all crypto assets or digital assets the same, right? Digital assets, that are stable coins or digital assets that are real world asset-based tokenization are very different from speculative meme coins, right? So let's make sure that we do the right classification and we give them the right levels of freedom. So I think that's the first part of it from the rules perspective. And then there's obviously going to be rules in terms of what people can do, how they can, what are the tax implications? That's another big thing. How do we bring more people into the tax fold in a way that is fair, right? Again, the rules can make sure that that happens as well. The second part of that is the rails, right? Again, we are very blessed that we have a lot of the rails in place, but now the question will be, how do we test to make sure that those are scalable when we adopt this at a much broader level that we've done before? And that's where we have to be very careful, right? There was a similar program that was done in Brazil that failed because they tried to do a big bang approach, and when they brought in the privacy-based issues, the tokenized system couldn't handle it, and it actually blew up, right? So we have to be very careful about making sure that the rails are scalable enough to be able to handle it. And then the last part of it is training our folks, right? The bankers, the compliance folks, all of those to be able to understand what the implications are of using tokenization of digital currencies, of stable coins, of programmable money, and how do we make sure that we do the right things with it, but we don't abuse it either, right? I mean, the failure in India with Paytm was primarily a talent issue. It wasn't a problem with the rails. So I think that's the other enabling part of it. So if we can go at it with those enabling technologies in those three phases, inshallah, I think we'll do well from that perspective.
And just two follow-up queries on that. A little bit about fractional assets as well, is because obviously we do have a lot of assets available with us. How to actually create fractions of those assets and then make those assets available for wider utilization by public, wider,
so yeah, so on your tokenization front. So on the tokenization side, I would say that the opportunity exists to take a lot of assets that Pakistan has. I would start with real estate, because real estate is a favorite investment vehicle for a lot of people with money in Pakistan, but it's unfortunately limited to people with meaningful assets, right? If we can tokenize, if we can make fractional assets available, we can make it available to people less fortunate, right? And do two things with that. Make them part of the growth story of Pakistan, create more financial inclusion, and because it's tokenized, we can create far more trails, provenance, audit trails, all of those along with it today, because the problem with real estate today is that A, it's illiquid, and B, trying to find the paper trail is a nightmare, right? So you could actually solve both of those on the real estate side. The second thing I would do is go into places like, trade finance, because again, the ability to do atomic, settlements, the ability to do, programmable money and to be able to do those settlements is huge, and that can create, especially for small to medium businesses, it can be a huge level upper compared to large institutions that have armies of lawyers, that have armies of corporate finance folks who can do these sorts of things, right? So it can be a huge enabler for SMEs as well. So that's where I would start, because I think both of those can not only provide real tangible value, but can also act as financial inclusion as well. So we're not just doing crypto or digital assets, we're including more people and enabling small to medium businesses to do better at the same time.
So with respect to asset fractionalization, I'll share a few of our experiences as well. For example, we've got clients which are probably more interested in having asset fractionalization projects done in Punjab, in the real estate sector, is because of the fact that those are probably relatively cleaner title deeds and lesser probabilities for some of the disputes to come in at a later point in time. So the business entrepreneurs who are actually residing in Karachi, the wealthier entrepreneurs, by the way, are actually opting for properties in Lahore, their properties in Lahore, to create that first pilot kind of experiences in terms of asset fractionalization, the real estate asset fractionalization. So it is becoming an interesting conversation in the country with respect to the title, the accuracy or the
that's wonderful. And the other place I would say that another thing I've noticed, for example, is a company I know in Dubai, but it's Pakistani owned, called Zamanat, is actually providing Sharia-compliant real-world asset tokenization, which is another interesting field because with the move towards a Sharia-compliant, banking economy and overall economy, there is a need for more Sharia-compliant, tokenization. So companies like that are popping up that are doing the
I
same
think
thing
I
as
think
well.
therefore the clean titles are probably going to be extremely important in terms of doing
Exactly.
that. So and obviously, Ali, the conversation is now tilting towards the one biggest thing that needs to be done in terms of making all this secure and resilient. Obviously, a lot of people, including the Minister for Finance as well as the Minister of State for Finance, and obviously all the other different panelists and speakers did converse on this specific topic. I think obviously with your expertise, we'd probably like to ask from you, with the kind of the world that we are anticipating for Pakistan, the digital world, with Pakistan Digital Authority, Pawara also doing a lot of good things, and also State Bank of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan as well. So, how do you actually, what kind of pressing challenges do you think are the governments are facing or going to face, the businesses are going to face, and how do we actually make ourselves more resilient in terms of addressing these new business frontiers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. First of all, I want to thank the rest of the panelists. Great discussion, great presentation so far. Thank you so much for the PBA for discussing cybersecurity in Pakistan. I think it's a much needed topic, and it's much more necessary as Imran has demonstrated in his presentation, the acceleration and adoption of programmable money, right, and digital assets, and what we perceive transaction of value to be, and how do we actually protect this so we could build a trustable ecosystem around it. So the way I would look at it is that if you step back and you look at the pace of currency and adoption in the last 2,000 years, but then compare it to just the last 10 years, you'll see the number of people that have been able to actually interact and transact because of the mobile payment systems has actually catapulted for the need for speed of transaction. So I think there was a really good discussion around, I think Dr. Abbas earlier mentioned about crime and chaos and what innovation can actually bring to the economy is this disruption. So disruption is usually directly correlated with crime, as he mentioned, and then crime is typically related with the speed at which money is moving. So I've visited Pakistan. I moved to the US 35 years ago. I've tried to visit Pakistan as a cybersecurity leader in the past and really pushed the envelope around cybersecurity for many years, actually. And I'm so glad to see that there's a much more dire need for adoption, especially with the great work that the government is doing around building trust as the Switzerland of Asia, and building peace and governance through Pakistan, and what the Field Marshal has been able to rebrand Pakistan with his initiative on building a safe, secure, sovereign society. So you can't have a safe and sovereign society with the pace of money that's moving if you don't build a cybersecurity infrastructure capability. So just like Mohammed Bhai was saying at the Digital Authority, Pakistan also needs a cybersecurity authority, right, that has a very disciplined, very structured, methodical approach, just like the banking system does, on building protocols, adopting talent that harnesses those protocols into the actual infrastructure of the 32 plus financial institutions that we have in Pakistan, and then actually building a framework to accelerate and adopt around what programmable money and digital assets and this agentic payment system society that we're shifting toward. So that means it's a lot of work, so it takes a lot of patience and a lot of calculated organization. And I think when you're trying to build security around innovation, what I realize is that one of my mentors, actually, Dr. Alicia's here, Ron Green, who was the CISO at MasterCard. He was a mentor, luckily, early in my age. And in my career, what I realized is that you can't build security after You can't focus on cybersecurity after the fact. You have to build it during development, during review cycles, during audit cycles, and cybersecurity is not just about, oh, it's SOC 2 compliant, and every year I'm going to get audited, so I have to click 5, 6 check boxes, which unfortunately a lot of startups resort to. In financial institutions, you have to build security by design. So, JP Morgan Chase is really brilliant in doing this. There's a lot of great companies like Recorded Future in collecting cyber threat intelligence that builds preventive fraud management systems real time, right? And one of the great things that I've had the privilege of doing since I've come to Pakistan is work with the CISO community, right? And I'm really glad to see CISOs participate in the Pakistan Banking Association, which probably hasn't happened before, right? So it's a movement that we also did a decade ago in the US, where the FSISAC, where I was the CTO, we started to pull cybersecurity leaders into non-cyber financial summits, and we did the opposite of bringing cyber leaders into actual non-technical summits, right? So I think that
cross-pollination
of talent, building a really sound strategy and working with secure by design, meaning continually iterative processes of during design and development sessions and embedding a security engineer as part of your digital innovations leadership is probably the most important decision you can make as a leader in financial institutions today. So that's just the basic foundations of how I would approach secure digital innovation within Pakistan.
Yeah, I think in the context of the developments that are happening, the criticality of it is far greater than ever before. I mean, in terms of the governance that you're talking about and making them as part and parcel of the team, that is developing a concept or they're delivering on a particular outcome. So I think you're absolutely right.